Well, hello, Larry again. Time for another not music theory session. I won't call it a lesson because it's really more just me exploring things for myself, and hopefully it helps other folks, primarily beginners like me, to understand music and music theory, or not music theory, a little better. So what I'd like to talk about now is chords. And I think understanding chord structures is very useful for understanding the relationship between chords and chord changes, transitions, and chord substitutions. It turns out that very often you'll see a song, and you'll see one version of chords for the song, and then you'll see a slightly different set of chords, but somehow those work also on the song. Well, why is that? And we can talk about that as we go through, as you see how closely chords are related. At any rate, so we'll start with some basics. We'll see how long this session is, and maybe we'll do a couple of sessions depending on how complicated the chords get and how confused I get. Okay, so let's start first with just a simple notion of a major chord. One way of thinking about a major chord is if you have a major scale, and I'm going to do the C major scale. So a major chord consists of the notes that are the first, third, and fifth chord in the major scale, or notes in the major scale. So first note, third note, fifth note. So and I'll do the C minor scale. If you remember, that's the Aeolian mode. And a minor chord consists of the first, third, and fifth note of the minor scale. So major chord, minor chord. So that's one way of thinking about chords and chord structures. Another way of thinking about it is this interval. The interval between the first two notes of the chord is called a major third. And the way you can distinguish a major third, and again, think of it in terms of shape, is that it's two notes that are separated by 1, 2, 3, 4 half steps. So there are 1, 2, 3, 4, basically, four half steps. Or another way of thinking about it is there are three chromatic notes between the notes of that interval. So that's a major third. The second half of the chord consists of what's called a minor third. And a minor third has basically 1, 2, 3 half steps. Or you can see there are two chromatic notes between the two notes of the minor third. So minor third, two chromatic steps that are in between, major third, 3 in between. So that's another way of thinking about a major chord, is that it's a major third followed by a minor third added on top. So now let's look at the minor chord. Well, you can see the first part of the minor chord is a minor third, and notice 1, 2, 3. The second half of the chord is a major third. So you can think of a minor chord as a minor third with a major third on top. Now, this brings up some other chords, which we'll talk about in in more detail later. But for example, what happens if you have a major third followed by a major third? Well, let's see, 1, 2, 3. Oh, interesting. That is an augmented chord, and we'll come back to that a little bit when we talk about inversions. And then there's the what happens if you take a minor third and put it together with another minor third, and that is a diminished chord. So, but the chords we're going to talk about for the most part are the major and minor chords. So here's the C major, C minor. So let's just take that and look at some other keys. What would be the D major chord? So there's the root, and we go one. So that's a major third, and that's the minor third. That's a minor third. What about A major? 1, 2, 3. 1, 2. And you can do this anywhere. B flat. 2, 3, 4. E flat. And so forth. So that's again one way of thinking about chords. There's lots of ways you can think about them. Again, if you see first note, third note, fifth note of the scale, and you can go back to thinking about it that way. Now let's talk about inversions. So I started this chord on the root note, but you can, because this note has an octave, I can play there, and that's called the first inversion of the chord. It's the same notes, just in a different order, starting with the E, and I can go here, and that's a second inversion. And then I can come back to the chord an octave higher. So all of those are the C chord. But again, it's the uninverted chord that can be structured by major third on top of or below a minor third, like that. This is a different interval going from the G to the C. Is actually a fourth, but all right. So major third, minor third. So that's the inversion of the major chord, and the same thing is true of the minor chord. All of those are the C minor chord. And then you can do the same thing with any of the chords. Here's the D chord, B flat, and so forth. So that's the inversion notion of inversions. And then it turns out we talked about the augmented chord. So a major third on top of a major third. Now let's do the inversion of that. And what's interesting is you'll notice that this interval is also a major third. So really, the C augmented chord and the inversion of the C augmented chord, the first inversion, is actually also an E augmented chord, and the second inversion is the same as an A flat or G sharp augmented chord. So it's kind of interesting. In this case, the the inversions of an augmented chord are other augmented chords. Again. So basically, we're taking the 12 steps of the chromatic scale and breaking them into three pieces. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Right? And this would be true of all of the augmenteds. So now let's do a de-augmented. So that's the de-augmented, but if you'll notice, the first inversion is also an F-sharp augmented chord. Or a B-flat augmented chord. And so forth. So anyway, so major chord, minor chord, inverted major chord, inverted minor chord, and just oddly enough, augmented chord. Okay, and then finally, and we'll do this in a little more detail. It turns out that the diminished chord, which is a minor third with a minor third on top, if you add another minor third, this is a full diminished chord, and its inversions also repeat. So now instead of dividing the 12 semitones into three pieces, we're breaking it into four pieces. That's the first piece, second piece, third piece, fourth piece. But they're all equally spaced. And in fact, you'll recognize this. You'll hear that rising diminished chord, just inversion after inversion, is often used in background music in a mystery situation or a horror situation. It's a spooky chord. Anyway, so that's sort of a first look at chords. We'll get into more detail and do some funkier chords, and then notice some relationships between chords next. Okay, take care.